It's 7 o'clock, and let's call our meeting to order, our Harrisville City Planning Commission meeting, to be specific, on Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. And formally welcome all those that are present. And do you have anybody online? Okay. We welcome you. Glad that you're here. Let's move on our agenda to item number 2. Oh, and I would like to excuse our Commissioner Brenda Nelson, who's not present. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 2. This is consent approval of our Planning Commission meeting minutes for October 12th, 2022. Everybody get a chance to review. Any concerns, questions? Okay. Fabulous. I'll entertain a motion to approve our minutes.
I'll make that motion to approve our planning commission meeting minutes of October 12th, 2022.
I'll second it.
Okay, very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 3. Discussion, action, recommend preliminary approval for Ben Lomond View Phase 2, located at approximately 200 west, 2000 north. And there's Justin. Justin, would you mind coming up and reviewing the engineer's memo?
Yeah, so right now we're just looking for preliminary acceptance to keep moving forward with Ben Lomond Phase 2D. I know we're kind of still caught up waiting on UDOT on 2B. But we did get some good news on that front. We should have comments back by Friday from UDOT, Monday at the latest, on the new drawings for the light and the study that they did on Hunting Creek. So hopefully that should roll out and be, we're hoping, good news to then fast forward with that. And they're just kind of working through their plans right now. They're engineering on 2D to make sure that they're all ready to go and up to standards, so that when 2B rolls out, they can shortly follow with 2D, because it's the continuation of the 2000 north, or the attachment to 2000 north, up more towards the Coons property, closer to 200 west. So
Nice.
kind of in Matt's notes are pretty just self-explanatory on, the culinary. We're still waiting on their plans and the secondary plans. The sewer, it's gonna be very much dependent on what the grade is tied in down here at this intersection, and how much slope we need to then get clear back up to that top corner. So that top corner will end up being kind of the deepest part of the sewer, because we actually lose fall as we come down to this point. So anyways, we're
How
just
much higher is 2000 north compared to where it will go out in 89? Do you have an estimation?
I don't have that hard number. Matt does, I think, in a calculation somewhere, but it's quite a bit. Quite a
Seems
bit.
like at one point, we were looking at like a 20-foot
Yeah,
difference.
in elevation. I think it's right around that, from the top of 2000 to 89.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Any questions you guys have of Justin? Oh, he's okay.
There's a long list of comments.
It is a long list of comments. Again, it's where it's preliminary. We give them these comments in that period before final to get them addressed and fixed, and come back with no comments on their final review, so.
Nice.
And again, they're doing phases, but they seem to like to do a very big phase.
Okay.
You know, is kind of how it is over some of these other developments that have 20 lots in the whole entire subdivision. Each phase is roughly 100 lots.
Nice. Okay, Jenny, I understand that you would like to go over the staff memo.
Sure, thank you.
If you would, please.
So because this is a mixed use development, the main analysis was the comparison between the recorded master development agreement for the project against what they submitted as their preliminary application. Everything was consistent with the MDA, the original MDA, the number of units, their location, the type of units are all consistent with the master development agreement, including the open space. And there are just a couple of notes. The landscaping plan will need to be submitted before final approval so that any parks included in this phase are also included and outlined in the landscaping plan. And then I just have a note for the buildable lot area to align with the overall development for each use. There are some of the single family lots that have unique sites. We just want to make sure that by the time there's setbacks met, there's still a buildable path for a home consistent with the surrounding homes. So I just put a note there for that to be reviewed. So because of its consistency with master development agreement, staff is recommending preliminary approval at this time, recognizing that this entire phase is contingent on the approval of phase 2A and the connection to Highway 89.
Very good. Guys all get a chance to review the notes, and they're pretty interesting. Thank you for the pictures, the contrasting pictures by the way. That was helpful. Very helpful. Okay, any comments, Nathan? Any concerns? Anybody?
So straightforward, they just need to build the phase that's already approved before they get to the next one. They still have to build them in order.
So they could do that. Is this whole process for like 9 months? Huh?
Yeah, we're hoping to get those comments back from you as quickly as possible so that we can give them their final approval through city council and we can get started.
Yeah, also make sure that jumping that to move forward. You know, when you imagine the investors are going to be right. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, if there's no other comments on that, it does seem pretty straightforward in this process, and it's consistent with the MD, which is good.
Make a motion if you're ready for that.
Yes, please, Nathan, go right ahead.
Motion to recommend preliminary approval for Ben Lomond View Phase 2D, located at approximately 200 west, 2000 north, subject to compliance with the code and both of the memos we got, which the city engineer's memo dated on the 4th and the staff memo dated on the 27th. And any other staff or agency requirements.
Very good. Can I have a second? I'll second. Good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 4. Discussion action or recommend preliminary approval for Harrisville Fields at 51 lot cluster development located at approximately 750 north, 250 west. And Justin, do you want to share with us the engineer's memo?
So this was brought to us by a developer to the project management team and has met the requirements of a cluster development, knowing that part of this will actually fall into the floodplain and then be turned over to the city to then create a park type area down in this area. Yeah, Matt's. memo. Again, as we can see, there's still quite a few comments, through Matt's review on the plans that we're discussing. This will fall under the, city-owned special service district. For secondary water, we need to obtain, interlocal agreement with Ogden City as far as the sewer line. Some of the sewer will actually go out to Ogden City's sewer line, the other will dump right into the central Weaver trunk line that's down in that section of property. You guys aren't aware, this is actually the piece of property off North Harrisville Road, but right now there's a gravel road that the Stevenson property was there, and that house will be actually demolished and make a road all the way down and tie into North Street. So again, we don't drive development, we just, if they meet our codes and standards, then we allow the development to take place. So there are a few comments, Matt's got back to them, they'll be addressing those shortly. And again, before it comes back to you guys for final, all those comments and engineering notes will be met and filled and required, and we'll be able to move forward with that project also.
So do you have any concerns with the stream disappearing and what they're planning to do with it?
Not necessarily disappearing. They're working through the state for stream alteration permits. Piping some of it where they need to pipe it. Again, having to go through the whole FEMA process of doing the CLOMA and LOMA for the map revision on the floodplain area that impacts this development. And then he's building in that. So to their surprise and our surprise also, we've gotten a better version of updated maps from FEMA that are right now still in uphill through FEMA. But they'll be solidified and done in the next 90 days, and it's actually the base flood elevation is a little bit lower than we originally anticipated. So it doesn't impact as much of that property down next to the tracks as we originally thought by our drawings of our maps.
Very
So
interesting.
that's kind of me. I've been spearheading that, working with FEMA and going through some trainings to better understand how to be a better floodplain manager. So
Nice. Very good, Justin. It's awesome. I'm so glad. Can we go back to that picture that we had before? Can you show me where the floodplain would be?
well, in this common area, it's called open space common area. There's some floodplain that cannot be built upon.
And the stream parallel to the road. That's the stream.
Yeah,
Okay.
So they'd have to pipe it at least under the roads.
under the road, and then,
Pipe it more
then the way the stream it turns down to that, what we call the Stevenson property,
Mhm.
turns and then dumps down into 4 Mile. It doesn't go out to North Street. That's why the house is right there. It kind of makes that turn down to here.
Unique feature unless it flooded for that house right there, and the creek right next to it.
Yeah, that was surprising news to learn. That's good. Well, people, the whole property down there.
I have one other question. One of the notes on the map, I think it was page 44 or something, had a note that said they needed planning commission approval for the amount of frontage that lot had. That one, right there, that one, yeah. And I was just wondering,
And I don't know if it's as much as it's probably. Well, a corner lot can't have double frontage.
oh. That note. I was wondering what.
Oh, that is, so this is a unique corner lot, right? Because it actually has frontage on this side, and this side.
Mhm.
We don't usually typically allow that. We allow a corner lot to have frontage on two sides, but not three. So yes, that would probably have to be stated in your acceptance of the development.
Is that a preliminary or final? We need to mention that. They got a lot of shoveling. Is that why?
Yeah, absolutely. The unique circumstances are because the Ogden City Road goes and North Street dead ends there, it turns into a dirt road.
Right.
So there's no improvements further down on the north side. So it does affect one lot and you're welcome to include that in your preliminary approval.
And that's where the gravel driveway for the neighbors goes as well.
Right.
So that complicates.
We have-
there.
We have discussed this and we'll further research the public right of way. We don't believe Harrisville owns any public right of way west of there.
Okay.
And that's why the improvements are all tying into Ogden's, but we're in communication. We're trying to obtain a meeting with Ogden City to further discuss this. So this is all preliminary until we get the final information from what the plan is. We've heard a lot of different things from the potential connection down there, and we just want to make sure we're on the same page of what's happening down there.
Yeah, it might almost make sense to make that a T instead of. To. Just for the road to connect at the end. As opposed to right before the curve.
Here, you mean,
Yeah,
and eliminate this lot, is that what you're saying?
yeah. Those might make more sense. As far as the roadway is concerned.
The problem with that is then you're eliminating the two lots.
Right,
And having an alignment issue to keep the roadway out of the
Flood.
floodplain, the road is pushed to the east. And we have to have a certain amount of distance between for a safe road connection.
right. Okay. Yeah, that one is.
It does have some unique characteristics.
So do we want to refer to that lot number?
26. And I'll just go ahead and, if you're okay, Chair, and review a few of the planning notes on it.
Yes, please. Where they have it. Thank you.
So the history here of this proposal is, it is a cluster development. And this proposal application was received in November of 2021, actually. It originally included a connection to North Harrisville Road and had a cul-de-sac, and of which the length and the number of units exceeded our code. So it was denied at the project management level at that time, and the applicant applied for a variance hearing. And a variance hearing was held on January 18th of 2022. And the decision of the hearing officer was to grant the variance to allow the construction of about 20 homes on the cul-de-sac and allow the cul-de-sac length to exceed 600 feet due to unique circumstances of the floodplain impact on the property. In the months following, discussion was given and an application was made to extend the subdivision beyond that initial cul-de-sac and stub road to the south to actually connect with North Street in Ogden City. And so we did receive an application on July 8th of 2022 for that preliminary approval for the Harrisville Fields cluster subdivision. It expanded the initial application from 98 acres to 36.93 acres. When we analyzed the cluster development, the findings were, here I can jump back, sorry, to my memo. If you want to see the findings there. So the finding, the minimum acreage or cluster development is 10 acres. And the maximum density is equal to the number of units that would have been allowed had the entirety of the acreage and developable land. They get bonus density for meeting certain bonus requirements. This had almost 50% density bonus because of the amount of open space. And what we did is we negotiated another 10% bonus for having energy efficient homes in the project. So between those two, they are actually under the number of 50% bonus density that would be allowed for that, so the 51 units meets that. The only other note is the cluster development ordinance requires all lots to be consistent with the zoning that's closest to that development, the majority of the development, if that makes sense. So this development closely meets the R110 regulations. So there are a few issues with a couple of lots that have been marked on marked them on the actual drawings, and then we included them in memos of the minimum frontage requirement is 90 feet, and the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet. And so those are conditions listed. They also have to obtain the service letters. They will have to incorporate into an request annexation into this 4 mile special service district for the secondary water. But at this point, we feel comfortable recommending preliminary approval, and we will work through all of these conditions and staff memo notes before it comes back for final approval.
Okay, any questions? Anybody?
Does everyone else think about lot 26 and the 3 sides of sidewalk? One call out that specifically mentioned that approval. I don't think I want to travel that much, and it makes it hard for them to, park other vehicles or anything, because they've got streets on 3 sides. Be interesting to see which side the house faces. Is their backyard inside there to the cul-de-sac, or just one line? Yeah. At which point they have access to the road and the driveway.
Yeah, not ideal. Somebody. Okay. So. That's 51 units, huh? All meeting in R10.
There are a few issues that will need to be addressed, so from the lot sizes and the frontage requirements that may impact the number of units, but it is time, right?
There's a couple really on cul-de-sacs to develop those roads dead end. And the neat design of the map. I'm just wondering if that side of that lot has to turn into a gravel driveway, if that's gonna affect their use of it.
Okay. Any questions or concerns? Based on the review that the city has done, I think we're good to move forward. And
But would lot 26 be included in this other staff or agency requirements as an additional requirement? Because they'd be included in this.
It's not mentioned.
It's not necessarily mentioned, but it would be included in saying
do we
other
want
staff and agency requirements.
how would we phrase something
You
like that?
you can add the specific to the motion if you want, to call it out, yes,
For further review?
or no approval of the three
Okay, gotcha.
sides.
Yeah, we include it, and we're including it in our preliminary approval and saying that we're okay with the lot that has 3 sides of sidewalk. and a potential gravel driveway, because the neighbors have a driveway that goes along that side of the property from 400 north, and so there's potential of an easement there. That's that shaded section at the bottom. Oh,
Nice, see that.
that's why the stripes go off to the side, is because that right now that's gravel. I don't have too many concerns with it. I just think it's a very unique lot, and it might be difficult for them to use, given the size of the street.
All right. Kevin, you want to give this one away?
Yeah, so how are just including approval of the three-sided lot 26?
Yeah,
So you can go off of the. On your second page there,
With addition to.
motion recommend, you have that. Yeah. Right there. There, we can just add it on page one.
yours is just bigger than that.
Yeah, I've got that on the first page, but with including approval of the three-sided lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Go right ahead.
I'll make a motion to recommend preliminary approval for Harrisville Fields, a 51 lot cluster development located in approximately 750 north, 250 west, subject to compliance with Harrisville Municipal Code, City Engineers Memo dated November 4, 2022, staff memo dated October 26, 2022, and other staff or agency requirements, including approval of lot 26 with its three sides.
A second,
I'll second.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay. Very interesting, thank you. Okay, let's do on the agenda item number 5. Discussion to grant approval for a conditional use permit at 2458 North Highway 89 for a large vehicle repair service. This seems to be all the property. It seems like there's a new business request every other month. It seems like there's people talking.
Supplement by an place still there.
I don't know, that's one of my questions. So what is the latest with the others that have sought approval to operate their businesses?
So the previous application for the vitamin business is located there. This is out of a different building on the property. The application was received for a conditional use permit. I believe we have the map included here for the site plan. This is the proposed location of the large vehicle repair and service business.
Is that the one with Jenny saw?
Yes, sorry.
This is another section.
That building. Okay,
The other businesses in the front location.
okay. And there's a road going back to that part of there.
There's two access points off of Highway 89.
Okay.
And there are a couple of, if you'd like, I'd be happy to review the staff memo. Commissioners.
That would be great, please.
So the city received a conditional use permit application for a large vehicle repair and service business on October 22nd of 2022, and all applicable fees have been paid and permission has been granted by the property owner. An analysis of the municipal code in regard to the uses and the basis for issuing a conditional use permit have been reviewed. The services includes truck or large vehicle repair or service as a conditional use in the commercial zone. And we've outlined in the staff memo all of the basis for issuing a conditional use permit, which include the location of the parking lots, the access ways and delivery areas. And to not create an unusual pedestrian or vehicle traffic pattern.
How far back does the skiing property go? Sorry. Can you? show me?
It goes, I believe, I didn't pull up the zoning map, but I'm happy to do that. The actual parcel goes quite a ways back. So this is the parcel area. Sorry, that doesn't hold still very well. That is the actual CP2 parcels. That's all are included.
Picture the color has 3 different colors, you can see which one's flat.
And this, we did talk to the applicant, this does not include any of the A1 area. It ends at the back of the lot. The building already exists and there hasn't been any application for building modification, but if there is, they will be required to meet the current building code. The hours of operation are outlined in another section of the code as well and need to be considered in the conditions. The other item I'd like to draw the commissioners' attention is the environmental requirement. And the staff is recommending a state stormwater permit be issued for the use of that or the business to be those truck service and repair. So under our vehicle repair services, we have a few limiting requirements. The hours are limited to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. In addition to that, there's any outdoor storage of vehicles or other vehicles for salvaged for repair can only be 10% of the property and must be screened at least 7 feet tall. This is not adjacent to a residential zone per se, but there could be the requirement on the backside. It does butt up to A1 if the commissioners want to consider that. And the limited salvage of parts needs to be a condition as well. Only necessary for the repair of other vehicles to eliminate the possibility of it becoming a salvaged storage area. So those conditions have been listed out on the staff memo: the state industrial stormwater permit, the hours of operation, the outdoor storage requirements, other compliance with Harrisville Municipal Code, and any other staff or agency requirements that the commissioners deem necessary for that. So
I have a question. We'll get to the applicant on this, that and the Harrisville Code on with the hours, it says that the repair work on vehicles shall take place inside an enclosed building. Yeah, there's an enclosed building that's gonna take place in.
I believe the property owners here, I don't know. If
Yeah,
that-
there's. Yes, please come up, sir.
Yeah, we always use for skiing construction. This is a 35 by 40 building. And so what their general use is their shop and maintenance would go into there. This was allowed every once in a while, trucks that are hauled in to be repaired. The max repair there is probably brakes, down, airlines, whether you're belly down, semi, whatever there. So what I've kind of limited my use and I've sold off. I've added this building for them to lease in this area. And this is a shared driveway here also. This is more, would be their emergency use that I have with the other tenant, which we can always use if needed.
For the fire department, is that?
And so there's not a big operation here now. I did hear a storm drain mentioned in 1999. If you go into Harrisville, I was one of the first ones to join into your storm drain grant that you was to receive. And everything here in my outline of this square property was given to the city with the amount used. It even shows additional buildings on here back when it was approved. And I basically exit down to 2550 where the state picks it up there and takes it out. There is an oil separator down there now. And that's all they required last year. You know, we had those algae, we put it in there. So there's nothing really there that has changed from what this has always been used for. Except for I'm cutting back. You see very little there. I'm starting to separate and rent some space. Currently, I'm renting over 3/4 of my, or scheme construction at 3/4. With the cost of things going up, I'm gonna have to address some of these areas. Now, I do own behind this the 750 West. I actually own all the way over to near the 750 West. And if we get down there, I don't go that.
Can you show me where on that the parking for this particular building would be?
In the blue.
Okay, right there.
If they
Is
have
that-
employees that needed to park there, that was designated because I have plenty of parking on the property.
Okay, is that all dirt? Is that all?
That is recycled concrete. That is probably about 8 inches thick. The reason I've stayed recycled concrete, which is basically as hard as asphalt. But I still have track machines. I still have 70,000-pound loaders. Mini X's, little skid steers with tracks that don't allow me to pave that area. I will be using into this area. You see the outer bounds. For still some scheme construction equipment. Right here is all open right now.
Don't really wouldn't make sense to screen their parking of their vehicles to be repaired from his vehicles, which are parked on the other side of it. The property line.
One thing that Troy couldn't be here, he's always scared that the mechanic doesn't even have a CDL. Is Troy runs about 15 to 20 customers. One thing we discussed heavily that's inside my contract, and I think he wrote it even in our deal when I done it, is they basically don't let people come in here and park and wait for their vehicles to be fixed. They give them a date they can get to it. The only vehicles that'll be brought in here will emergencies. Something breaks down, wrecker has to bring it. He can work it in, they'll say, bring it, can't work it in, he won't. So he can do 2 or 3 things in a day. But it's not a place where you see a lot of your bigger mechanic shops surrounded with vehicles waiting to be worked on. He's agreed with me, they schedule it out, which they have done in the past. You bring it in, this day we do this.
So where on this map would they put trucks waiting to be worked on?
I just use this as a general area.
Okay. So
And a little over here, this is just kind of a right of way. That, we'll both be using this. we'll both be using a little bit of this, but just to give you a general, I gave him the same plan you're seeing here. But we had agreements of use in the contract like he wrote there. So 6 to 8 or 4 to 6, I think that's what I put down, he's put down there. That's a pretty low amount of vehicles in a repair shop. So it's
4 to 6 per,
4 to 6 track, somebody they'll have on site at any time.
Mhm. And we put that in the application because I don't want it to become people that has damaged vehicles. The only thing that's holding them a little longer is if they get in on repairs and can't get parts.
Right.
And that's been a serious issue since about 2000, even for me. Then you've got to set that aside till parts come in, but you've still got your other trucks coming in. So that you can run your
so the
business.
agreement you've made with them is to have as a limit to the number of vehicles on this particular piece of property, 4 to 6.
Yes. Well, what is this
It's for repair.
for repair total? I said, if you had 6, it could be 12 trailers, because everything comes with a trailer. But, so I left that allowance, even though a lot of them break the trailer off, so they don't have to break them off. But you're talking emergency,
Right.
if they have to.
Right, so the property's big enough to be able to come in with a big trailer and park it and still.
Yeah,
turn
you
around.
can come in off this exit and you can turn around in here, any vehicle out there, any.
So there's an entrance from the north side to the south side. So if you come all the way back on that road right there, is there? There's a way to turn around all the way in the back there.
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah, that's a big area.
Right. Okay.
That's a huge area without even hitting. My asphalt is to here. They won't be touching that, but yeah, you could turn doubles, anything you want in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking through the condition, that's not gonna change the. Or the circulation patterns going through the area. And the very unusual traffic patterns that aren't expected with this sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
an
real
enclosed
greening.
piece of property, it's not, they're not in the house.
And you know, the pink, basically, you could put. The pink is just kind of me, easements, he knows I get to my animals back here. Easements, we kind of use it both, you know what I mean? And because he didn't need the full area himself. And I still. Outside this line is my first rental. This is basically. Would be Arnett Trucking. And I still contain a building, office, everything here. In the center, ski construction and parking here and into here and that.
Hey, thank you, I appreciate your time.
And everything back here. There is no drainage that goes back, everything is filled inside. There's catch basins in here. Everything that the rear of that property
Draining toward the middle.
is draining this way.
Draining towards the middle and
And then as we come down through here, it's shallower coming off the highway, but it all drains. And there's catch basins all the way down here and all the way up through here that are designed.
Very good, thank
So
you.
on this, Mr. Scheme, I
Yes.
see you have basic tire service. Is that just repairs or
He
replacement?
replaced, he repairs.
Okay,
So that with brakes, if they need tires or something, he will repair or replace. A lot of locked up brakes blown out of airlines takes your tires to a flat spot.
So he'll have some product on the business, right?
Yeah, but they're stored all inside his building right now.
It's not gonna have any salvage vehicles for parts or anything.
No,
Okay.
Nothing's salvage title,
No.
everything's over the road going.
Correct. There's not a truck full of parts that's out
No.
there.
There's no parts that'll be out there called in and ordered.
Perfect.
Fleet Pride, all those different accounts he has. Mechanic shops just can't afford to stock anymore. As he gets his job, then.
I have one question, the hours limited operation from 8 to 8, and we've mentioned several times emergency repairs. Do you take in a vehicle after hours?
I can answer that, no,
Let's have it.
no.
And I don't know why it was something I just
I
want.
mean,
If
would
we
it
need
happen
to-
once a year? Possibly,
Right.
depends on if it was close and high patrol, no lights, anything. Ask them to use it for safety. I'm not gonna deny that. Because they're the ones that have to determine what goes on, but with records nowadays, they're really pretty good.
I was just thinking we need to do a conditional or something.
So that's not what we're in business for,
Right.
to do it outside them hours. Usually a mechanic, somebody has to be there to check that vehicle in. He's not in the business to get up and come check a vehicle in at 2:00 in the morning. My other company, which you see here, the bus company, now they ran 24 hours today. But they had office members in 24 hours a day. So we're trying to abide by that and new, is there any other? That anybody sees, I should have done this a little bit better over here, this is the lineup with this, so that I always have access. And this is always an access, and they bought this right away for widening. I already had the state give me the accesses for this, and I use my numbers of 17 trucks. And more equipment than is even fit in my yard. Because the size I was, it had to be out on jobs. If it had all come home, it wouldn't have fit. So that was back when this was added on to.
I appreciate your time.
And so, is there any other questions?
The only thing we really haven't addressed too much is that state industrial stormwater permit, which is really just making sure that you're not dumping oil into the storm drain.
It's so much more than that. It's so
It's
much more than
making sure
that.
it's clean.
There's a lot more that goes into it.
Justin, yeah, would you mind conducting, please?
That's
So-
that, make sure we know what we're getting into there.
Yeah, so. With the state industrial stormwater permit, that's a permit that can be. Applied for online through the state through Department of Water Quality, DEQ. And it lists about 20 or so different, things that fall under the state, industrial permit. And I'm just reading E, motor freight transportation facilities, passenger transportation facilities, petroleum bulk oil stations and terminals, the postal service, the railroad transportation facilities. So they're saying any bus facility, any trucking facility, anything that's got to have a federal motor carriers number, which all semi trucks have to have that federal motor carriers to be out on the highway. So they fall under this industrial stormwater permit that can be reached out to the state and obtained to the state, but we should not move forward with giving conditional acceptance without that permit provided from the
That
state.
is just to keep the stormwater clean.
It is to help clean the stormwater. There's actual regulations of testing.
Right.
And yes, he's very right. The capacity of the stormwater is fine. They're not adding any more hard surface or impervious surface or rooftop space. They're not adding to the stormwater system. They have upgraded the oil water separator as per UDOT standards.
Right.
They did that last year. which we're totally fine with that. It's just this state industrial stormwater permit. And very much like any new development, it has to go in and get a state notice of intent, stormwater permit. The city does not run the industrial program. We're a small enough city that we don't fall into that classification. The State Department runs it, but we are the ones that kind of monitor that and have communication with the state. As Mr. Skeen very well knows, when the salvage yard was out, the state industrial stormwater people came out and did a complete audit and found some things that were pretty alarming and had to get fixed.
I'm just thinking, if I've dealt with these permits before, and it kind of said, work in industrial areas.
Yeah.
But for a trucking operation, the main thing is that those chemicals and debris and dirt from them aren't entering the stormwater. You want to run a clean operation, keep the stormwater clean, and they'll do inspections and tests and make sure you're not dumping stuff down there. But that's the basic idea of it, so you have to get that permit for it.
Hear that exactly. Didn't the state give that full approval? I mean, I don't know if they contacted our city.
The UDOT gave the approval on the oil grease separator. But when you go change businesses, the licensing for the DEQ needs to follow the business. So if had one, then that went with the salvage company. They didn't have
The salvage company, when they was there, was called out on that. I had to go and meet with state, I met with 5 different people with the state. And we brought everything up to code with the state. And doubled the size of the oil water separator.
Right.
Just because it's always been used for that type of operation, so I'm in clean standings.
Right.
So this be too hard.
This is just a piece of paper the business needs to have in order to operate.
Pardon?
It's just a piece of paper they need to have from the state that says. the
That's
state's
hard to
gonna come
get
and make sure
nowadays.
it's still good.
I hate to tell you, I got emails that would address that, but you know, with things going on. Everything was approved, like I say, the oil separator they asked for, I doubled the size of it.
Okay, good.
So nothing can enter that system.
Okay. With what you're saying, then their analysis should go pretty smoothly.
Yes, all my system has been updated and it's out. That cost them right close to $18,000.
Okay, thank you.
They done it in the storm drains, they done the outlets. Inside the boxes. They put all the screening, everything that was very strict.
Okay, very good.
And then they made them flush the whole system. Which they had completely done so that all pipes would be clean.
Okay,
So that was all, I could give you a list of names, I can,
that's okay.
and,
We appreciate.
but they didn't have a form that I signed.
Okay,
There's a form of what they wanted. But when I got it all done, they just all come in and inspected it
right.
and signed it off the emails back to me.
Right.
So it should take care of the property forever with the type of doing, this section anyway.
Okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate your input. Thank you very much. Okay,
That's in the staff report, so the motion, we just have to mention the staff report conditions.
the staff members included in there. Would either of you gentlemen, Brad or Bill, would you like to offer a motion? No. Okay, right on. Go for it. Okay,
I'll do it.
okay, you go for it.
I'll make a motion to grant approval for a conditional use permit at 2458 North Highway 89 for a large vehicle repair and service. Subject. Shannon to my company, Barrett Trucking at that address. Subject to compliance with Harrisville Municipal Code, the staff memo dated November 2nd, and any other staff and agency requirements.
And also request this one.
Did I include those Because that's gonna be next.
Please.
Right. Including the recommended conditions from that staff memo. Business obtaining that state industrial stormwater permit in accordance with the code, the hours of operation being limited to 8 AM to 8 PM. The outdoor storage to be screened appropriately, compliance with the Harrisville Municipal Code. And I feel like I'm repeating myself on the other staff and agency requirements. That's the motion.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 6. And who is going to, Jenny, would that be you or would that be Justin that will do the presentation later?
So that would be me. Thank you, Chair. I just have a brief review, but we wanted to take the opportunity to bring you up to date with the 750 West Municipal Complex. Basically, this is an overview of where we're at in the process for our relocation of our public works building. So you are familiar with this concept drawing that was prepared by the city's engineer. And this is the section that we are talking about to relocate the public works building to the highlighted area. So the city had approved the city council approved the architect firm back in June. And since then, the staff has been meeting with them quite frequently, about every 2 weeks. We meet with them as we've gone through the assessment process to assess the city's needs, to assess what we already have, what we'll be relocating, any future growth expansion that we can anticipate. And we have modified and gone through some of the site plan designs. We've taken the public feedback that we've received into consideration in the location of the buildings and how much of the site will be needed for this project. And I just wanted to bring you kind of up to date on some of those things, where we're at with that. And Justin's here as well to answer any questions that you might have in this space. So I've pulled some slides from our architectural firm. I actually would like to mention as well that we just completed an RFP and put it out to bid, received 8 applications for a CMCG, which is the construction manager, general contractor RFP. What the city's opted to do, staff opted to do, is bring a contractor on as a consultant during our architectural process. Due to the construction costs, we want to make sure that we don't outprice ourselves during the process of design, so that the materials that we're choosing and also the size, the amount of buildings, all of that is going to come inside the budget that has been allotted for our project as much as we possibly can. There's just a kind of a brief overview of some of the interior pictures of some other projects that the architectural firm has done here. This is just an example. None of this is completed, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the things that we're taking into consideration as we meet with the architectural firm. We have notes. We've shifted the location of the city public works building. We've reversed it so that the storage bays are on the interior and the actual shop and the admin building are what's fronting the public view. We've toured several facilities as staff, and we toured one of the facilities that the architectural firm has designed in Salt Lake County, I believe. They designed and were pleasantly surprised with the visual aesthetics of the building and the incorporation of windows and other materials that make it very pleasing to look at. And so this is just calling out how much it's changed from our original concept plan. You can see as we've assessed what the city's needs are and what, again, the feedback that we've received, we're trying to consider that as we move forward through the project. And we've noticed that there is more room here than we need currently, and we pulled it all down to the south with the understanding that this road is the access point for the public, and we do need to tie it in for the same reason that we were just discussing on the previous item for the large trucks to have access to the public works facility. So this is just an example. We haven't landed on this, nor is it the final concept plan, but this is just an idea. I wanted to show you what we're going through as we talk to them. They've come, the architectural team has come every time with 7, 8, 9 options for the city to choose from. And they've gone through a lot. They've designed multiple public works buildings, and they also have a large supplier on board of their team to accommodate things that we know we're going to need in the future. So
Nice.
we've moved on to the floor plan and the size of the bays, the truck storage area, and the interface with the admin building. One of the comments that we keep receiving from the public and we're very mindful of is what they're going to be looking at. And we're trying to pull the admin building out as a focal point so that that's a more visibly appealing thing to look at. We've also again pulled this down to the south side of our access point. And these are again are just designs, nothing that the city has decided finalized, but meeting the square footage needs and also the inside requirements for office space and the stairwells, conference room, break room, all of the necessities. It has other things in the shop that Justin's been modifying and working towards. This is just an example of one of the Cache County buildings that the architectural firm designed with flow, the things that we're trying to consider during the workday, the access points for the public versus the access points for the employees, and just the workspace, the general workspace. This is much larger than what our square footage is, but it's just an example of the things that we're considering when we talk during our discussions. And this is kind of our schedule that we've been working off of as far as our planning. We're still in the design development phase. And once we get the site pretty much finalized, we'll be bringing that to you with the conditional use permit that's required for the building. We hesitate to do that too early because we don't have things for you to mitigate yet until we know exactly where it's going to be located, and so we can address those points at that time. And then ultimately the site plan approval through the planning commission with the proposed construction beginning in May or June of 2023.
So beginning in June, estimated time for completion.
Estimated time of completion with the construction RFPs that we've just received is a 12-month building cycle. Is an estimation. Again, these are all concepts and estimation, nothing's finalized, but they
Somewhere in.
the 12-month construction.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to answer any other questions. We're still again in the design development phase, bringing on that construction manager to give us good information on what could keep our costs down and what's available as well during our process.
Go back to the picture that showed the bays. Okay. And the building on the far south, that's going to be the admin building right there.
Yes, and they've designed several options for the city, and we actually gave them comments last week about the flow and the location of different office space and the relationship between the public interface with the staff interface. And so they're still working through all of those comments and feedback that we gave them They're going to be modifying it into a 3D model for us, so we can get a visual of what, and then they'll overlay exterior. The technology they use is very good. When they get the final product, it looks very much like what they've designed on the architectural.
So the admin building on the south, there's a parking lot for the public of some sort on the road. And then there's a road for all of the snowplows.
Yes.
Some of the other
Well,
side.
If you don't mind.
Yes, no, please.
So what we've decided, so this will be the main road that connects, so 750 is right here. This will be the main road that connects all the way out to Highway 89 through this commercial piece and however that transpires in the future. But so we'll designate this for public parking, this for employee parking. There will be a door into the admin. For public, there will be a door on this side for employee entrance only. And then there'll be an entryway. There'll be two separate buildings, but there'll be an enclosed entryway to go into the shop.
Okay.
So it all ties together, it all kind of flows. Again, we got a lot of feedback that people didn't like. If you go back to this
The
concept.
piles of salt right there.
Well, not just the piles, but the buildings. It feels very BDO. They get the back of a building. So now they'll get this actual building will sit more right here with the admin building up here. And then these buildings will actually come closer to the future site of the city hall and police department. If you want to go back with a designated due to the nature of what we are and the salt corrosion. With many tours of other facilities that people had that other cities had their wash bay right in one of these bays. They couldn't make it concrete and fiberglass. So they were actually getting chewed up by the salt and the chemical, and it just wasn't good. So that's why the truck wash will be standalone off of the salt bay and the others, and it will be a solid concrete building with fiberglass kind of mezzanine with a water cannon to clean out those bigger trucks and all the salt, and then tie into the sewage system through an oil water separator and certain things, so we don't, but we can't dump it into the storm waters because of the salt. More storage shops right here, the fuel island will be up here, and like we said, up here is just kind of open space with that extra road. This gate right here will not be a remote gate, it will only be a manual gate, and it will only service for delivery, truck delivery. That way they don't have to drive through the entirety of the complex, they can either drive in here, dump and leave out the same way, or drive around here, dump and leave out this way. Because that will be very minimally used, especially at first, when nothing else is going to happen for a few years on this other stuff. So we've tried to, like Jenny said, we've pushed it to the south as much as we could to give ourselves room for future growth and expansion, but also, you know, to give ourselves more open space, especially if this becomes rec area, then it can be viewed as recreational or parking for recreational.
Nice.
In the future. So yeah, we've taken a lot of public comments and tried to. I know there's been other public comments that said, well, why don't you sort of tuck it back here? Well, we don't have the access and the flow to get trucks in and out if we don't have a back.
Have you thought about it in your wash bay where you're doing that, to wash these trucks and sanders out? Have you thought about using that for salt brine in your snow removal operation?
So we've talked about brine, and brine is just such that finicky level, and how when the application best goes out.
3%.
Yeah, when it's the best time to put it out, especially if you grind something and it comes in as a rain event first and then a snow event,
And
then it just washes it away. So,
Well, it
For the-
dilutes it.
yeah, it dilutes it, right? So for our small staff and crew, a rock salt is where we're
So you're
staying right
gonna-
now,
you're gonna
but
have
again,
your, stockpile there,
yeah, under a covered
okay.
mezzanine covered storage. So it'll be a concrete bunker with a metal top. I know some have used the other type of kind of canvas tops. I don't think you quite get the longevity out of those. So, and it'll be salt, sand and gravel and road base and gravel, road base sand. However, so there'll be 3 compartments to dump into.
So there is, I didn't prepare this ahead of time, but since we're talking about, let me pull up the architects. We can actually show you the facility that we toured, give you a visual of what we look forward to. Our architectural firm is Blaylock and Partners out of Salt Lake City. And these are some of the designs that they've done.
Wow.
But specifically the one looking for is, they've done the county public works, but they've done the county, this is the administration building that they've done. So that, this would be the portion that sets out separately from the shop. And then
Where would this face? That would face towards the bosses. This right here? Yes.
And then.
That would face towards 750, right?
No, that would
South.
face
towards the
South.
parking lot.
south.
So you get the side of the building.
They, I don't know if they have one of their shop. They have a beautiful shop. The admin building is actually separate from. This is the operations center?
Yes.
Is that,
Oh, that's-
that's the West Jordan? Kind of good.
That is, yeah.
Is it? It looks like it from the outside. Sorry, I'm unprepared, but I thought maybe we.
No,
Oh, thank you. I
Take
appreciate it.
advantage of-
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's not the one I was going for, but, I think you can get an idea from the pictures here of what.
So
they-
very open, lots of
Very,
windows.
very much so,
Just-
very aesthetically appealing in comparison to some of those that we toured.
Very nice.
We're not. And so again, we're bringing on the construction manager to make sure that we
Stay within budget.
stay within our budget and what our allotment is, and they are very creative with some of the processes that they've used and some of the materials that they've used are super unique. When we toured the Salt Lake County actual shop, they had a beautiful entryway with their additional offices there, but then you go out to their shop and they had windows available. They consider the impact to the people that are working. They prioritize the people that are working in those spaces as highly as they do the equipment and things. So
Nice.
we've tried to balance it as best as we can, but
That's awesome. Do you have a picture representation of what it will look like from 750
not yet.
inside the building? Right. Okay.
Is this it?
Yep.
The fleet maintenance building. We don't have the 3Ds yet. We just barely got into the start. So you can see how
So that would be on the inside. That would be on the east side.
either this is, they're pull through doors.
All the way.
So they'll have bay doors on one side and bay doors on the other side. But they use unique,
As well as inside.
What part would set against 750 west?
either the bay doors,
Okay.
the bay doors. Either this side or the other side, depending on which way.
Mind you, this is a 20 day shop. We're talking
Right.
about a 5 day.
It would be significantly smaller than this, but this gives you an idea of what they have done in the past. Again, ours will all be driven by what materials and things that we're able to do, but we felt very comfortable with what we saw when we toured. what they've done.
Okay, right on.
Anyway, just a little.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that a lot. Wonderful.
If you have bay doors facing 750, are you gonna have a road in front of it to go in and out, so it's set back away from 750?
Okay, thank you. With that being said, let's move on to agenda item number 7, which is our public comment period. So if you would like to make comments on anything that we've discussed tonight, you're welcome to do that, or anything that is on your mind relative to the city. And if you'll try to keep your remarks to 3 minutes, please, then we can allow you to turn if they would like to. Roger, you look like you're ready to get up.
I'm ready.
If you'll just state your name for the record.
Okay. My name's Roger Shute, and I live at 1870 North, 750 West. So, since about July, I've been, me as well as several of the residents that are on 750 West that are impacted by the irrigation issues that have been caused by the golf course. Tree demolition, ponds that are stopped running. Excuse me. So I talked to a guy by the name of Doug, who's one of the investors of the development from New York. And then he put me in touch with a guy by the name of Bruce Higley from North Iowa City. We went over and met with Bruce at the golf course to try to get our water. Well, some of the interesting things that came out in that meeting was both with Doug as well as with Bruce is nobody's recognizing that we have water shares that come through there. And so they say that planning commission didn't plan on making sure the irrigation was going to be taken care of, that both Doug and I believe the other guy's name was Bill from New York. He actually sent me a picture of what their plan was to put a pipe in somewhere. So there had been some plan. I don't know if they're planning on like some of the other irrigation water ditches that have happened where the city turns them into stormwater. And then it tells you can't put irrigation water in the ditch. It's been there for 100 years. So the water coming down. So I have 4 shares of cold water irrigation. My neighbor has North Ogden irrigation. Several of the other people that are in here have North Ogden irrigation, all on 750 West. We all have paid for those irrigation rights. We're all owed those irrigation rights. And it's your guys' responsibility to make sure we get the irrigation water. Last year, you end up with a little dinky tiny stream coming down. Part of it was caused by a pipe that Harrisville City allowed residents to put into the irrigation ditch. It's also tied to your stormwater drain. That's all plugged up with crap. And so then our options is Harrisville City's not willing to do anything about it. So they're telling us that we have to. So when we go in with a big excavator and tear somebody's backyard up. So I'm not sure that's what they want to do. But when they allowed them to put the pipe in, they didn't put any screens, no metal grating, which you would see in a normal pipe. And so it's allowed the flow to stop. If you go through the golf course to the east side, North Ogden irrigation dumps into the golf course. You can look at the size of the stream there. Runs down the west side or the south side of the property along the backs of the houses that are there. That's actually part of North Ogden City. Comes down and there's like 2 different ponds, 3 different ponds along there that it's been diverted out of over the years. But those are all messed up because of some of the work that's been done. So by the time the water gets to where it diverts back to the ditch that shoots over to us, it's a half the amount of water. My one neighbor, Glenn, Williams, the amount of water that comes to him is a trickle. So he has 28 acres he's trying to irrigate. Takes about 5 days to irrigate the water. So my plea to you is to make sure when you're looking at these developments, that we get the same, well, we get the same water that we should be getting. There should be 2 sources of water coming down that ditch. There should be ample water coming in. So I know several of us have talked about hiring a lawyer, and if that's what we have to do, I guess that's what we'll have to do. But it's, you know, we don't want to have to spend it because we didn't ask for the golf course to change. And it's an unfortunate thing that somewhere down the line, whether it's your engineer or whoever, but I've heard the term, we don't have a ditch master. Well, it doesn't matter if you have a ditch master. I have a piece of paper that say I own water shares. And there's the president of cold water irrigation. He's the manager of Bonavista Water, if you want to call him. And there's presidents of North Line Irrigation as well, so. The other thing that I'd like to comment, I know I'm about done with my 3 minutes.
You're way over from 3
Yeah.
minutes.
But maybe you should consider moving the shop back further off to 750 West. And build a less expensive building, plan something more for your administrative building, up closer to 750 West.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
My name's Mike Farrell, and I live on 750 West. Along with the water that Roger's talking about, they dump the storm water into the irrigation ditch. And then my brother Don Farrell gets flooded out. And if they do that with that subdivision, you're gonna flood everybody out below it.
Thank you.
Marvin Farrell. I live on 750 West. And I've been here before and I've addressed this several times. I have a letter that I've given to the city addressing this on the Ben Lomond development and other issues. And it's like this goes on deaf ears. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. We bring this up. There's nothing here about all I have on the plan is it's saying that the dishes will be piped. That hasn't been addressed to any one of us, what size pipe, or it'll be. You need to take into consideration that ditch has been there for several years going through there. There's an easement on that ditch. It's a perpetual easement. And it's not to be touched unless it is approved by the shareholders. Do you have that on record? What I just said. I need to know that you guys understand. There needs to be a certain size pipe, head gates. We need to have access to those. We need to have access to the pipe. If you're going to pipe it and you run a road across the top of that and there's a problem, who gets to pay for that? The city. We don't want it. Is the city going to take care of it? I doubt it. Those are things that we need to address. What Mike's talking about that he just mentioned was the stormwater is going to run into the 6 mile. I've addressed this. This was in my letter as well. You're dumping the stormwater into the 6 mile. Your answer is, well, we're putting a bigger culvert in under 89, Highway 89. Well, what happens when it goes under Highway 89? Where does it go? Okay, it floods people out downstream. And that's what happens. It's not being addressed. There's the culvert down on the railroad tracks that's it's actually caving in because of the storm water, and it's going to erode out. There's just several things. along with this. And I hope that you can hear us and hear our voice tonight. What we're trying to get through here. I know that this is in the preliminary planning, but we just want to be heard and want you guys to understand. And we're more, any one of us here are more than willing to help out and come to your planning meetings or whatever we need to do to help with this construction. We're not trying to stop it. We're just trying to get what we should have and what's ours. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I'm Darren Daly. I also live on 750. And I'm talking about the same ditch that comes through. And as it is right now, how it's coming through, the property that's just west of 89 is flooded. So the water management there is nil. And so as that water comes through underneath 89, you know, that we need to address that. Now I understand that's probably the property owners, you know, some of that's their responsibility. But if we shoot a bunch of water to them without any kind of diversion, it's gonna hit that property, it's gonna hit Don Farrell's property on the other side of 750, and then go down in and, you know, like Marvin just said, under by the railroad tracks already has a conflict. So those are things that we need to, you know, address, along with getting the service to our properties so that we can maintain what we have. You know, that's like we've all said, we're here to help and do what we need to do as citizens. But we just want to make sure that what we're paying for, we get to receive, and that the city can do what it needs to, all, you know, hand in hand. So we're all on the same page and we know where things are gonna be. And no big surprises, like, you know, get it all developed and then find out come springtime, we have no water. So then all our pastures dry up and we can't feed our livestock. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Good feedback.
White Barrel, everyone, 750. Appreciate the work that the city has done on revamping all of the buildings and things for the works department that are on 750. They look really nice. It's going to cost us a lot of money to do what you're doing. Do we need it? Like the one person said a few meetings ago, do we need it or do we just want it? There's a lot of property on the east side of the highway that still belongs to the city. I don't know why it's not being used for public works department. It's right next to the parks department. That's still sitting by the park. There's still two entities on the north side of the Bentley place. I don't know if we own both pieces or just one piece. There's a lot of property at the end of Independence. It's just there, right at the cul-de-sac at the bottom. Why that can't be used for the public works department? It would be right to me, would be a good spot for whatever you're going to do with it. The property on 750 was never designed.
Sorry to take your time.
Oh, do it. To do what you're doing.
Daryl's bought that piece of property for a park. We had a committee that had that all put together as a park, a walking park, a picnic park. And Mayor Hendricks, he kiboshed that, put the money that he had extra over in the parks on the east side. It was never designed to have the municipal building over there. Do we really need it? I've never been in any meetings that they tell us we're too small with what we got. The police department's too small. I mean, we still got some property here that can be revitalized, redone to accommodate some of that thing. I'd just like to have you look at what we're doing as a city. We're only so big, we're not gonna get any bigger. And there's only 2 or 3 projects that really need what we're talking about, spend a lot of money on. I know that I've been to a lot of meetings and it just went over my head with the bonding procedure that we've had. We've never been told how much money that is, what the percentages we're gonna have to pay. Are we gonna have more taxes to pay for it? How that's all come about. I'm not very smart with that kind of stuff, but it looks like to me like the citizens are gonna have to pay for it. Or we're gonna have to get somebody to come in and pay part of that, or else we're gonna be charged a lot of money. But I appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
My name is Milan Valley. I live on 750 as well. I would just urge you guys to take into consideration, because I've been to a ton of your meetings. And I've worked with a couple of you that I know of through my other job as well, working for the power company. And I feel like sometimes you don't hear it. You run it more like a corporation business. This is our lives you're talking about. And you need to take that into consideration and quit making it a corporate. We're not corporate, we're a city. We're for the people, not for ourselves. That's what I thought.
Thank you.
Being whether to get up or not. Greg Montgomery, 231 Larson Lane. I think one of the things as you move forward, when you look at the public works buildings now, when you come to your conditional use permit, is something I think is lacking. You're hearing it tonight is while you look at the context of what is needed for the city in this operation, the conditional use permit process is saying how is what is being proposed compatible with uses next to it, which are all residential. And while the function is being designed to meet the needs of public works, there's no function being designed. Does this fit into a neighborhood where there's homes on the north, the south, and the west? And I think those are things that, as this moves down the road, I think are not being really considered in these concepts. There's some moving around, but still bay doors come out, vehicles come out onto appearance of front yards of homes across the street. Those are not things you typically find if you're looking at compatibility of that area. The one zone is meant to be open space, but the uses being proposed here, of course, are allowed as conditional use. But I don't think the conditional use aspects are being taken into account in the design. And we'll come to you at that point to make a decision. Right. I think they need to take a look at maybe some other options too.
that can better fit the criteria of the conditional use permit approval.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else?
I think everybody spoke.
Thank you. No, thank you all. I appreciate your feedback. We all appreciate your feedback. We value it. And I'm sorry that sometimes the difficult balance, the dance that a city has is to look at the future of the city as a whole and not any one person. And what's going to meet the needs of the majority versus the needs of the few. But what we're going to do, we're going to do everything we can. We have to protect your water rights and to figure out something that will make sure that you continue to get the water that you own and you deserve. So thank you for what you've said, and we do appreciate everything that you do to try and keep us square. Yeah. Any other comments from any of the commissioners? Okay, we'll go ahead and end this public comment period then, and let's move on to agenda item number 8. Any staff follow-up?
So I have a couple of things that come to mind. I think you're all aware that we had a general obligation bond on the election that took place yesterday that overwhelmingly was against our bond for the recreation, which will impact the future of our 750 West Municipal Complex, at least with the planning. We did put that element out to the public to see what the temperature was, and they overwhelmingly told the city that they do not want a recreation complex. So we, some other points, I recently attended some of the training and conferences. There are various things that the city is trying to get out ahead of with some proposed legislation that we might see come through the legislative sessions coming up in January. And the mayor and I met recently with our new representative, Brian Wilcox, District 7, on Monday, and talked about some of the upcoming challenges that our city is facing and some of the challenges that we've faced with the development, how it impacts our city being a small city, the mandates that come down through the legislation. For example, these aren't related issues, but storage for our police department, things like that, that they mandate that are sometimes very expensive things for a small city to have to address. So we're in the pre-budget, pre-legislative period where we're talking about a lot of things. One common thing we usually adopt in this time frame is our moderate income housing report. We now have new requirements by the legislation that was passed last year, where we have to implement strategies for our, well, we've had to implement the strategies. Now we have to actually show how we're doing those strategies during our moderate income housing phases and what we meet. And we have asked the county to give us an assessment, and they'll give us back the numbers of where we're at so we can start that process. So that's going to be delayed a couple of months while we get out ahead of it to meet the state requirements on that. So that's something that we will have coming forward. We're happy to address any public comments if you want any of us staff members to, or you can take them under advisement as we move forward with our continuing projects as well.
I wouldn't mind having Justin come up, if you would, and just address the water.
That's a very tricky stretch of ditch. As you heard from public comment, there's two different water sources. One has cold water shares, one has North Ogden shares. It seems like there's a miscommunication of where and what times, what head gates need to be functioning. If they have North Ogden shows, they should make sure that the North Ogden Canal head gate clear up in North Ogden is open and functioning. That will give them the more water to then run down, that runs down into 4 Mile Creek. Then through a diversion head gate at 4 Mile Creek on 1875. So the cold water shows are actually the 4 Mile Creek water, how they call it, and then the North Ogden shows. Actually, there's a head gate on the North Ogden Canal that needs to be turned open, rising that creek and sending that excess water down that ditch. So there are those issues. Again, it is very tricky because 4 Mile Creek, the water comes out of that ditch, cuts across the golf course, dumps into 6 Mile Creek. Both are protected state streams. Dealing with right now, the state stream alteration permits to actually widen, move and re-landscape the 6 Mile Creek for the golf course. And get it out of those pipes through those backyards. Again, those pipes were in there long before I ever got here. I've been told, rumored that there's a bunch of routes, they tried to jet them out as far as the citywide. Then we had Ben Lomond come in and say, hey, we're gonna jump in and move this stream. So then those pipes will be null and void, no longer in people's backyards. It'll run in an open channel through the entirety of the golf course. Again, and I've tried and handed out multiple phone numbers to try to bring the developer to the table and the water users to the table. So we can hash this out so that we can have the correct size of pipe. There is no need for a head gate to be in the golf course area. Because there is one on 1875, which does have quite a bit of blow by and leak by that I've asked that it needs to be addressed through the ditch users also. But there's also a section of the 4 Mile Creek right in that area that is going to be addressed through development to get out of the floodplain. So it's just trying to bring all the parties in to communicate and set that up and make sure that we're all under the understanding of how to make this work best for everybody.
For informational purposes, what's the time frame to where that will actually be functional?
That is a good question. I don't know that because I don't know the time frame of the developer as he goes through the process.
So it could still be a panel before development.
Well, again, what lies in the issue is we're trying to get this done pre-irrigation season because we can't have, the developer can't be digging up their irrigation line in the middle of summer and shutting them off water either.
Right.
That's not. So, and it's kind of the same dance I had to dance with down in Ashland Cove. Yes. With Ashland Cove, part of that ditch system is coming into the city's ownership because the city's taking over the irrigation system for that. As to where the city's not taking over any part of any irrigation system. Yes, we have to make sure that easement and that waterway is there and water flows through it because it is a prescriptive easement. But we are not taking ownership. We're not ditch users on that ditch as far as the city.
But we're gonna do everything we can as a city to make
Exactly.
sure that they follow the MDA and make sure the water still continues to flow.
Yes, and keep that easement open.
Sounds good. Do you all have Justin's number, his contact information?
I've got his phone number. There's a few of us that do, and if I may. Justin's been really good to work with. Okay. But here's almost not a majority, maybe. Glenn Williams has the biggest shareholder on that ditch. But here's your people, here's your resources right here. And I think that we're all willing to work with this. On the Mills property, when that happened over there on the Ashler Cove, there was a meeting held with every one of the shareholders on that ditch. They met on the property with the engineer, with the developer. And there's a few of the people that are on the city council that are owners of that ditch. And it's a little ironic that that hasn't happened over here on the Ben Lomond golf course, where that's a bigger project. But and Justin's right, it is a mess. Because there is 2 ditches, and I'm gonna blame Roger's grandfather, but he got that through my grandfather as well. And if Mike was there to put these ditches in, it's Mike's father, my grandfather.
Well, it was only one ditch, but the 2 waters came into one ditch.
Yeah,
Okay,
so anyway, we're
Right.
more than willing to help. if
that
we-
sounds awesome. Sounds like Justin's trying to do that very thing.
But you need to, people down here need to know where the pipe's going in at, what size of pipe. And there's gonna be cleanouts every, I don't know how far do they need them apart, every 100 feet,
That's on your dinner truck.
you know.
That would be something we're gonna need to look at.
You gotta feel the bids.
So for the purpose of the planning commission meeting, we probably should set up a separate meeting.
That's exactly what I was just gonna suggest. So with that, okay, so it sounds to me like we need to include like North Ogden. And
We can't take that action
Conversation.
today, so we'll just-
right, I'm just to follow up and kind of some of what we're talking about. You, Justin will get the players together, including you guys, and then you'll have a conversation.
So I'm actually on the North Ogden board.
Okay.
And we did go up to the main canal and cleared out that head gate and made a diversion for that water to come into, open up the head gate and allow the water to flow down and through there.
Okay, right on.
And so it did check the flow and increase the flow. So it is being provided.
Okay, good, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, very good. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Justin, for trying to get with these good folks to do that. Okay, any other questions or concerns? Okay. All right, let's adjourn this meeting for tonight. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Anytime you